What's up, everybody? This is the Spring Football Report. I am your host, Phillip Jordan from Lights Were On College Football and 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer of Dothan Wolves Football. Here on the Spring Football Report, this is your weekly look at all things spring football, focus on the XFL and the USFL. We are going into Week 10 of the United States Football League this week, and we'll be chatting it up with Josh Boutwell from the Troy Messenger. He keeps you up to date every week on what's going on with the latest Birmingham Stallions games. They have recaps and much more he's doing over there. Me and Josh share that passion and appreciation for alternate football, spring football league. So we'll talk about our thoughts, grading the USFL season this year. Just look at the standings, where everybody is going into Week 10 when it comes to playoff scenarios. I mean, when you're in the North, they're all North battles. The winners going to the playoffs, the two losers are not. The Birmingham-Memphis game is kind of meaningless in a sense. Memphis really can't get in. Birmingham, they're in the playoffs, but the other game between New Orleans and Houston is huge. Basically, for New Orleans, they win, they're in. So really, really big games this weekend, and we will talk about those as well, and the Stallions this year, and we'll look at their win this past week against the Houston Gamblers. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. And if you leave a review, I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Now let's jump into it with Josh Boutwell. Everybody joining me this week here on the Spring Football Report is Josh Boutwell. You can check him out over at the Troy Messenger, where he has all covered on all things Troy Trojan athletics. And also, you can check out, we have weekly stuff over there on the Birmingham Stallions. But Josh, as always, good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Anytime.
Yeah, we last talked USFL back after, I believe it was after Week 1. We were kind of worried and concerned and talking about the injury situation with the Stallions, but they have seemed to, they just find guys. Skip Holtz, give all the credit to the staff and the people up top there with the Stallions. They've kind of just figured this thing out, and look at here. We're going into Week 10, and they've got the best record in the USFL.
Yeah, that's probably been the most impressive thing about this team this year. Just the amount of injuries to key players, too, has been a big thing. You know, it just seems like somebody steps up at every spot that you see that happen, whether it be receiver, linebacker, offensive line, running back. It's been really impressive.
Yeah, it has. You know, before we really jump into just the Stallions and what they did this past weekend and going into this weekend into the playoffs, just overall, we're through Week 9 of the USFL. How would you grade this season versus last season?
I'd give it an A myself. You know, I think probably the biggest thing for me is just how close most of the games have been. I mean, there have been some blowouts here and there, but you really haven't seen a ton of it. And I want to say maybe, was it like 4 weeks in a row where every game was decided within one score or something like that? I mean, that's really impressive. And, I mean, we're here all the way to the end of the season, and up until, I want to say, I mean, it may be still the case that no one is actually eliminated. I'm not sure on that, but I know at least last week no one had been eliminated from playoff contention. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know like all the scenarios for Memphis, but I from what I've read and seen on Twitter and other people that have been kind of breaking it down, they pretty much need like a bunch of crazy things to happen this weekend to even get into the playoffs. But you're right, everybody else is in it because I actually do like we're in the last 2 weeks of the season division opponents. Because, you know, you had like Birmingham played Houston, and then New Orleans played Memphis. Now we're going to get some more South matchups. The North, they're playing each other. And you look at it with the North, it's win and get in with the matchups this weekend because you got Pittsburgh and New Jersey playing. Winner gets into the playoffs. Philadelphia, Michigan play. Winner gets into the playoffs. So it's pretty much like a playoff situation in the North. And in the South, I mean, New Orleans wins, they're in. But then if they lose, then Houston could get in. And like I said, the Memphis situation is just – they need a lot to happen. So, you know, I think this is better than last year because last year there was a lot of teams that just weren't making the playoffs. So at least now this week we're getting meaningful games in the last week of the season. It's not going to be a situation where, okay, we're just trying to get to the playoffs. We got games that are important this weekend.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot more parity this year, I guess would be the best way to say it. No one really, even the Stallions and the Breakers, they've been dominant at certain times, but I mean, still they both have lost multiple games. There hasn't been really a runaway this year.
Yeah, they haven't. I mean, look at it. New Orleans is the only team outside of Houston that has beaten the Stallions in the 2 years of the USFL. In that game with Houston, that was quite a good one too as well. And then Birmingham pulled away in the fourth quarter. But and like you said, looking at this too, do you think? And this is a problem the XFL had too. Look, it kind of probably went away when the 4-6 Arlington Renegades won the championship. But we're going to have a losing team in the playoffs, at least one guaranteed. If Philadelphia wins, they get to 5-5. But the other team in the North is going to be 4-6. That gets to the postseason. And you look at the South, all teams are winning records. I believe with these leagues like this, you should just go 2 division winners and then your next 2 best teams, not the top 2 teams in each division. Where are you on that? Because I feel that way to XFL and USFL, that's the way to go to get the best 4 teams. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. When you only have 8 teams, it's hard to say we're going to put a 3-6 team over a 6-4 team or something like that. I mean that or 4-6 over a 6-4. That honestly that just sucks to me. And like you said, the XFL had that problem. I think maybe with the potential expansion of more teams, maybe that will be something they remedy. But yeah, I don't like that scenario at all for sure.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say, well, the NFL has had teams with losing records getting playoffs. Like, yeah, but that's a league with 32 teams in it. And with divisions, I mean, at least they were a division champion getting in. I mean, that's a little bit of a different deal. I mean, honestly, why don't we just have the South have a playoff the way it's looking with all the 2 winning records? But, of course, you want to get the other team in there. And just looking at the Stallions, too, they're playing at home. They'll get a home playoff game with something they didn't do last year just because the state games were there. So they did clinch that playoff game this past weekend, Sunday, by winning. Of course, if you don't have Peacock, you had to wait until tennis was over to see the game. Missed a big chunk of the first. I DVR'd the game, so I had to go and watch what was on Peacock first, and then watch the rest off my DVR. But they went 38-15 in this one. I'll tell you what, Josh. You look at with Houston, if you don't look at the score, you would probably thought this was a much closer game than it was.
Yeah, they dominated time of possession, and the yardage was on. There was only a slight difference, but turnovers were a big thing. Really the biggest thing was the red zone. I think they were 0-5 in the red zone in terms of scoring touchdowns. You're not going to win games like that, and I believe the Stallions were 4-5, 4 out of 5, or 3 out of 4, something like that. So it's called the money zone for a reason.
Yeah, and with Birmingham this season, it seems like that has been their defense to me is not as good as it was last season.
No, it's not.
And injuries has something to do with that. But I'll tell you what, though, if you look at their wins, their 2 losses, they were not good in the red zone defensively. They were giving up touchdowns. But if you look at all their wins, this is what they're doing every week. They're forcing teams to kick field goals and not allowing them to score touchdowns. And then at the other end, nobody can stop Alex Magoo, who I think should win the MVP award of the league. The offense is capitalizing, and when they get in the red zone, they're usually scoring touchdowns. But yeah, this team is not as dominant as it was last year on defense, but when it comes down to it, like you said, the money zone, the red zone, this defense all year long, especially in the wins, are holding teams out and holding field goals. And that's what I've been looking at for this defense all year, what they have done well.
Yeah, it's been kind of a bend but don't break all year long. And like you mentioned, all of the injuries, it's played a big factor in it. But if a defense is able to hold the other team out of the end zone, you're going to win more times than you're not. And on the offensive side, you mentioned Magoo as an MVP candidate. In my opinion, he's the MVP as well. To start the season as the number 2 quarterback and get thrust into that role literally, 2 series into the season, and then not only that, but have 3 of your top weapons in terms of, Marlon Williams, as well as Bo Scarborough and another receiver that went down or had actually left the USFL, at the beginning of the year. You get a new set of weapons, and he's been able to kind of seamlessly come in there. I think he's leading the league in touchdown interception ratio. He's 2 or 3 in passing yardage. He's been extremely impressive.
Yeah, I know with him, I know he's got to give, and probably a good thing that Skip Holtz doesn't have any hair, because if he did, it would probably be gray with some of the plays that Alex Magoo pulls off. I know the Philadelphia game, I was there. He had one where he just held the ball, and he's like backpedaling in the pocket and waits till the last second to cut it loose, and we see a little bit of that against Houston on Sunday. So for him, it's that playmaking ability, though, because, that covers a lot of stuff up, and it's just hard. It doesn't matter what level of football we're talking. It's hard for a defensive back to stay with a receiver that long. And when Magoo's able to do what he's able to do, just, manipulating and, ad-libbing back there in the pocket, it makes Birmingham even more tough to stop.
Yeah, and obviously he's a little banged up. He's had a rib injury all year. So along with, holding the ball too long, most coaches don't want to see that, but when you tell him, you also don't want him running as much, but when you tell this guy to, not play his game, it's not going to bode well. That's how he plays, and we've seen it turn into wins for this team. And, he's got really huge targets in terms of the tight ends and his receivers, so the 50-50 balls that he likes to throw really work out for them. But, his running ability has been impressive. I think he was like 5th in the league in rushing as a quarterback. It's pretty insane. But just some of the plays that he's made, scrambling and making something out of nothing has been unbelievable. It's been one of the more entertaining things about the season.
Yeah, it has. And, I was telling somebody, too, Birmingham's got an interesting, when you look at the whole roster, even injury with quarterbacks, you've got Alex Magoo, you got Jamar Smith that got hurt first game, and then you also have Kyle Sloter. And I was telling us that if all these guys are back in USFL next year, this is 3 starting quarterbacks you have. Because if Magoo comes back, I feel like, he's Birmingham's guy now. And then Jamar, okay, he's good enough. We know what he can do as a starter. And then Kyle Sloter, he did not play well in the XFL, but he played well last year with the Breakers. So it's kind of an interesting quarterback room they have there, too, in Birmingham.
It is, and I think coming into the year, at least I would have said that Jamar was Birmingham's guy because of how he played last year. And now it's like it would be hard for me to imagine having another quarterback in that spot if he's still able to come back next year. But at the same time, having all three of those guys may give you the opportunity to possibly trade for another position in need.
Yeah, and you talked about receivers. I've been impressed all season with Deion Kane, what he's been able to do just as a kick returner, and he had the big 38-yard touchdown catch to open up there in the second half. Of course, felt like Birmingham got going against Houston at the end. It was a field goal fest basically between the two teams until the last minute of the first half. Birmingham went down the field, hit Jay Sternberger with 18 seconds left on that 4-yard touchdown. But Deion Kane's been great for them. He had a game this year. I think it was against Pittsburgh where he returned basically the game-winning score on the kick return. So he's really stepped up in the absence of those receivers being gone.
He has, and also the fact that Birmingham has the best tight end room in the league doesn't hurt matters. These huge targets, Sternberger and Petway and the younger Moss. That's been really impressive. But, yeah, Deion Kane has been a true weapon. And losing Marlon Williams was obviously a big loss at the beginning of the year. But he's proven that he can be that, especially that down-the-field target.
Yeah, it's just how they've done it. It's just, like I said at the top, it's just a testament of Skip Holtz and that whole organization and finding talent and what he's done as a coach, and they're in a good position. So, I think this I believe it's Saturday, yes, when they play Memphis, is quite interesting because we remember what happened last time these two teams got together. It was Birmingham went running away. It was a big-time blowout. But then we remember what was said between the two coaches after the game. Memphis, was not happy with Birmingham adding in an extra few points there. So that's going to be an interesting part. Look, we know Birmingham's in the playoffs, and Memphis is probably not. So I'll be interested to see, does Birmingham go full out, play everybody, just try to win, get to 8-2, or does, we know we got a home playoff game coming. do we rest guys? Because obviously you don't want to lose Alex Magoo. That's number one. What are you wanting to see between Birmingham and Memphis this weekend?
Well, what I want to see is a great game, and I definitely don't want to see them come out with the mindset of, hey, we're in the playoffs, let's go out there and get out of here healthy. And I don't think that's a good kind of game plan to have going into playoffs. You don't want to go in on a bad note like that. You want to go in on a hot streak. And I believe Birmingham's won four straight, so you want to go into the playoffs winning 5 straight. And I don't think Skip Holtz has that mentality of, we're going to rest guys and just kind of coast playoffs. Especially if it's going to be fired up, as you mentioned, the little saltiness at the end of that last game, and also they're as difficult of a path and maybe to the playoffs, they're still trying to get there, so they're going to be fired up and ready for that game. And I think Birmingham's going to have to try to come and match that mentality.
Yeah, Todd Haley did mention. I remember at the end he said, "We'll see you again." So we'll see. We'll see what goes down with that one. The other games this weekend, just quickly, just kind of see if you'd like to give a couple predictions on what else we have left. Also on Saturday, now this was, like we said, the North is winning get in for all these teams. You win your game, you're in the playoffs. The losers won't be going to the playoffs. 3-6 Pittsburgh and 3-6 New Jersey, which I was surprised on Sunday night. New Jersey, the offense just came out of nowhere. Johnson back in at quarterback, but they were up 37-16 at one point over Philadelphia. They held on 37-30. Who do you like in that one?
I think Jersey. I think it's so hard with the North Division saying, because there's really been no hot streaks that any of these teams have been on. It's kind of been win one, lose one, win one, lose two, stuff like that. But I have New Jersey in this game.
Yeah, we just talked about Birmingham and Memphis. Of course, this will be in Memphis, but I feel like, and I'm with you on that one, I'm with New Jersey too. Birmingham and Memphis, I feel like we're both on Birmingham in this one.
Yeah, for sure. Birmingham's 4-0 on the road, and I don't think they're going to slide going into the playoffs.
Then on Sunday, we don't get a game to 3 o'clock. I kind of do like the 12 o'clock Sunday afternoon games, but we have to wait to 3 o'clock on Sunday for the first game. New Orleans is playing Houston. This is big for both. New Orleans wins, they're in the playoffs. If they lose, Houston needs kind of some help from some of the stuff that happened in the North, from scoring differential and all a bunch of other stuff. But I think New Orleans is going to take this. I think they had a slide middle of the season where they lost 3 in a row, but I like New Orleans.
Yeah, I do too. Like you mentioned, they did have that skid in the middle of the season when really after they beat Birmingham, they looked like they were possibly the best team in the league at that point, and McLeod was probably an MVP candidate at that point. He still leads the league in passing, but I feel like they have too much firepower, and going into this game with so much on the line, I think they'll pull away with this one.
Yeah, then the last one is Philadelphia and Michigan. Philadelphia 4-5, Michigan 3-6. Michigan started 2-0. They've only won one game since that point. And Philadelphia, look, I'm all about Case Cookus. I was big on him going into the season. I think Philadelphia wins this one.
Yeah, I don't think this is probably one of the games that probably won't be close. I don't think Michigan has been a very good football team for most of the year. Philly's a good team. I think, especially getting into the playoffs, they're going to be a thorn in the side of whoever wants to win the championship.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So it's going to be fun. Week 10, like we said, it felt like the USFL season has flown by. I feel like it went by faster than the XFL season. It's just weird. I don't know why. Both for 10-week seasons, but it just feels like it has gone by much, much faster. But Josh, I appreciate you coming on, talking. I know me and you both share a passion for these alternate leagues, especially with the Birmingham teams. But listeners, viewers, want to check out, where can they find you and all the work you're doing?
TroyMessenger.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, the Troy Messenger. Also me on Twitter at Josh B. Messenger. And if you are a spring football fan in the state of Alabama, make sure you get up there for the playoffs and support that team and make sure that we continue to have a team in the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to a game 2 weeks ago. It was fun. I know, Josh, you've been to one this year too as well. It's a good atmosphere up there in Birmingham too when you go. So everybody go check it out. And Josh, once again, I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to talking to you sometime down the road.
As always, my pleasure. Anytime.
All right, once again, thanks to Josh for joining me on this edition of the show. A little bit shorter episode this week than normal. Probably back to a little bit lengthier episode on next week. Go check out Josh, all the great work he does at Troy Messenger. Of course, he writes articles on the Stallions and, of course, Troy Athletics. If you're in Alabama and you want to check out what's going on with the Troy Trojans, follow Josh. He will keep you up to date. And that's going to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. And as I said off the top, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. You know, the podcast is Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can always email me at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Everybody has a great weekend watching Week 10 of the USFL. Until next time, bye-bye.